You don't need to be lazy to damage your health. You don't need to eat junk food. You don't need to skip workouts 8 hours a day, day after day, quietly. And that's what makes prolonged sitting so dangerous. It doesn't feel harmful. There's no pain at first, no warning signal. But inside your body, important systems slowly begin to change, and not in your favor. What makes this especially dangerous is that sitting looks harmless. It feels productive. It feels responsible. You're working, driving, studying, or relaxing. There's no obvious stress signal, but biology doesn't care about intention. It only responds to input. And prolonged stillness sends a very clear message to the body. Today, I want to show you what actually happens inside your body when you sit for 8 hours a day. Why this pattern is far more harmful than most people realize, and how surprisingly little movement it takes to reverse much of the damage. This isn't about blaming modern life, it's about understanding biology. Your body evolved to move frequently, not intensely. Our ancestors didn't go to the gym for an hour and then sit still for the rest of the day. They walked, squatted, carried, stood, and shifted constantly. Movement wasn't exercise, it was the default state. When you sit for long periods, your body doesn't interpret that as rest. It interprets it as shutdown. Within the first hour of uninterrupted sitting, activity in the large muscles of your legs and glutes drops dramatically. These muscles aren't just for movement. They are metabolic engines. When they contract, they pull sugar out of the bloodstream, burn fat, and help regulate insulin. When they go quiet, your metabolism immediately slows. What's important here is how fast this happens. You don't need months or years of sitting for damage to begin. The metabolic shift starts within hours. The body is incredibly responsive. But that responsiveness works both ways. As muscle activity decreases, your body becomes less sensitive to insulin. This means your cells stop responding efficiently to the hormone that controls blood sugar. To compensate, your pancreas releases more insulin. Over time, this leads to chronically elevated insulin levels, one of the strongest drivers of fat storage, inflammation, and metabolic disease. This is why sitting is so deceptive. You can exercise regularly, eat reasonably well, and still struggle with weight gain, energy crashes, or blood sugar problems if most of your day is spent seated. 1 hour of movement cannot fully undo 7 or 8 hours of metabolic silence. Blood flow also changes dramatically when you sit. Gravity pulls blood toward the lower body, especially when your hips and knees remain bent for long periods. Circulation slows. Oxygen delivery to tissues decreases. Waste products are removed less efficiently. But blood flow isn't just about the heart pumping. It depends heavily on muscle contraction. Your leg muscles act like secondary pumps, helping blood return to the heart. When those muscles stay inactive, blood movement becomes sluggish. This creates pressure in the lower body and deprives other areas of optimal circulation. You feel this as heavy legs, cold feet, or lower back discomfort. But the effects go deeper than that. Slower circulation means less oxygen reaching your organs, including your brain. Cells that receive less oxygen produce less energy. That energy deficit shows up as fatigue, brain fog, and reduced mental clarity. Many people assume mental exhaustion comes from thinking too much. In reality, it often comes from sitting too long. Prolonged sitting also quietly increases inflammation. When muscles remain inactive for extended periods, inflammatory signaling rises. At the same time, the body's natural anti-inflammatory mechanisms weaken. Blood sugar instability adds fuel to this process, creating a low-grade inflammatory state that can persist for years without obvious symptoms. This type of inflammation doesn't cause immediate pain. Instead, it slowly increases the risk of heart disease, joint degeneration, insulin resistance, chronic pain, depression, and cognitive decline. This is why researchers sometimes call prolonged sitting the new smoking. Not because the damage is dramatic, but because it accumulates silently. Posture plays a critical role as well. When you sit for long periods, especially hunched forward, your breathing becomes shallow. The diaphragm moves less. Oxygen intake decreases slightly, but consistently. Shallow breathing activates your sympathetic nervous system, the part of your nervous system associated with stress and alertness. This means that even while you're sitting still, your body may be under low-level stress. Heart rate variability decreases. Muscles stay tense. Recovery processes slow down. Over time, this contributes to neck and shoulder tension, headaches, irritability, jaw tightness, and difficulty concentrating. The nervous system becomes biased toward alertness instead of restoration. Many people describe this as feeling wired but tired, mentally overstimulated, yet physically drained. Your posture is constantly sending signals to your brain about whether you are safe or under threat. Sitting collapsed forward tells the brain to stay alert. Digestion also suffers more than most people realize. Sitting compresses the abdomen and reduces gentle movement in the digestive tract. Digestion relies on motion. Subtle shifts that stimulate gut motility, enzyme release, and healthy microbial balance. When you sit for long periods, digestion slows. Food moves more sluggishly through the intestines. This can lead to bloating, reflux, constipation, and poor nutrient absorption. Many people blame specific foods, but posture and prolonged sitting are often the missing variables. There's also the lymphatic system, a critical but often ignored part of your circulation. Unlike blood, lymph doesn't have a pump. It relies entirely on muscle movement to flow. When you sit for hours, lymph stagnates. Waste products accumulate. Immune signaling slows. This contributes to swelling, fatigue, and a feeling of heaviness in the body. The brain is not spared either. Reduced circulation means reduced blood flow to the brain. Even small, repeated decreases in oxygen and glucose delivery can impair cognitive performance over time. This shows up as slower thinking, reduced focus, lower motivation, and emotional flatness. You're not losing intelligence. Your brain is simply undersupplied. One of the most frustrating aspects of sitting-related damage is that it affects young people just as much as older adults. The body adapts to whatever pattern it experiences most often. If sitting dominates your daily life, your physiology reshapes itself around that pattern, regardless of age. The real danger isn't sitting itself, it's uninterrupted sitting. The human body tolerates sitting quite well, for short periods. What it cannot tolerate is stillness without interruption. When you sit for hours without standing, walking, or changing position, critical systems remain suppressed for too long. The good news is that the solution is far simpler than most people expect. You don't need intense workouts, you don't need special equipment, you don't even need to break a sweat. Research shows that brief movement breaks can dramatically reduce the damage caused by prolonged sitting. Standing up for just a few minutes, walking lightly, stretching, or activating the legs restores blood flow, re-engages muscles, and improves insulin sensitivity almost immediately. Even 5 minutes of movement every 30 to 60 minutes can reverse many of the negative effects of sitting. This works because it reactivates muscle enzymes responsible for fat metabolism, improves glucose uptake, reduces inflammatory signaling, restores circulation, and calms the nervous system. This is why short, frequent movement is often more powerful than a single intense workout. The body responds not to effort, but to frequency. When movement becomes regular again, even in small doses, energy begins to return. Mental clarity improves. Digestion feels smoother. Tension decreases. Blood sugar stabilizes. The body exits shutdown mode. Perhaps most importantly, your body stops interpreting stillness as the new normal. So if you sit 8 hours a day, the question isn't whether you exercise. The question is whether your body experiences movement often enough to stay awake metabolically. Sitting itself isn't the enemy. Unbroken sitting is. Your body was designed to move gently and often. When you give it that opportunity, even in small doses, it responds quickly and powerfully. You don't need to overhaul your life. You don't need perfection. You just need to interrupt stillness. And when you do, your body remembers exactly how to function.